Afterward, Jesus appeared again to his disciples by the Sea of Galilee. It happened this way. Simon Peter, Thomas, also known as Didymus, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples were together. "I'm going out to fish," Simon Peter told them, and they said, "We'll go with you." So they went out and got into the boat, but that night they caught nothing. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples did not realize that it was Jesus. He called out to them, "Friends, haven't you any fish?" "No," they answered. He said, "Throw your net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." When they did, they were unable to haul the net in because of the large number of fish. Then the disciple whom Jesus loved said to Peter, "It is the Lord." As soon as Simon Peter heard him say, "It is the Lord," he wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off, and jumped into the water. The other disciples followed in the boat, towing the net full of fish, for they were not far from shore, about 100 yards. When they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals there with fish on it and some bread. Jesus said to them, "Bring some of the fish you have just caught." So Simon Peter climbed back into the boat and dragged the net ashore. It was full of large fish, 153, but even with so many, the net was not torn. Jesus said to them, "Come and have breakfast." None of the disciples dared ask him, "Who are you?" They knew it was the Lord. Jesus came, took the bread and gave it to them, and did the same with the fish. This was now the 3rd time Jesus appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead.
In the story from the Sea of Galilee, Jesus not only astonishes his disciples with a miraculous catch, but also reminds them of their original calling and mission. Isn't this also a tale about us, struggling with contemporary challenges, seeking meaning and purpose in everyday life that often seems incomprehensible and even fruitless? Our protagonists, the disciples, had returned to their former occupation of fishing, possibly to find some anchorage in the new, uncertain reality after the death of Jesus. For what else to do in such an uncertain reality after everything has crumbled to dust, and the servants of the religious and political system hunt every disciple? Moreover, with an empty purse and in the heart, great sorrow. Let's observe the scene further. After waiting all night, the nets are still empty. But then, someone appears on the shore and changes their fate with a single sentence. "Cast the net on the right side of the boat, and you will find some." What do we do when our life, our plans, our efforts do not yield the expected results? Is it worth listening to Jesus' call? This is not the first time Jesus shows the disciples that their path does not have to be marked by failure and senseless toil. Recall the moment when the Messiah first calls Simon Peter and his companions to follow him. In the 5th chapter of the Gospel of Luke, we read, "Do not be afraid. From now on you will be catching men." Similarly, in the 4th chapter of the Gospel of Matthew, at the first encounter with the future disciples, there is a specific invitation: "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." Interestingly, each of these events shows the disciples in an environment that was very familiar to them. Jesus does not recruit them in hostile circumstances, nor immediately throws them into the whirlwind of action. He first meets them where they are. Isn't that a comforting thought? God meets us where we are, even if it is a place of our failures and frustrations. It is primarily a metaphor explaining that true success and fulfillment are found not so much in changing the tools and methods of our actions, but in a different perspective of seeing. It is about turning towards the direction that Christ will show us. How many times in our lives have we stood at crossroads not knowing which path to choose? How many times have we felt powerless, trying in vain to change our situation, instead of pausing for a moment to look for guidance that could come from someone greater than ourselves? The disciples did not recognize Jesus' walking by the lake. And do we not sometimes struggle to see his presence in our daily lives? Jesus is here and waits for us to notice him, to listen to his advice, and to apply it in our lives. The catch at the Sea of Galilee seals this promise. The Messiah not only leads the disciples to a bountiful, life-giving catch, but also reminds them of their mission to catch people. He does not scold them for hiding away and not keeping their word, but again, with paternal kindness, reminds them of the commitment to proclaim the gospel. What is remarkable in this story is that Jesus not only fills the fishermen's nets, but also prepares a meal for them. Waiting for the disciples are bread and roasted fish. The Master shows through this that he cares for us not only in grand life endeavors, but also in satisfying ordinary, everyday needs. In a life full of uncertainties and struggles, Jesus wants to lead us. He can bless us with abundance beyond what we could even dream of. It's not just about material gifts, but primarily about spiritual wealth, about deep peace and joy that come from being with him, in obedience to his word. In the hustle and bustle of everyday life, it's easy to forget our original calling, which is to spread the good news about Jesus Christ. It's easy for us to get stuck in the routine of fishing for the stomach or for profit, forgetting that our task is to catch people for Jesus. But the story from the lake reminds us that our work and efforts only gain true meaning when we do them under the guidance of our Master. So when we face new challenges, let's remember the sad disciples with their empty nets. Let our first thought not be how, but who can help us. Let it be an invitation to cast our nets in the place that Christ will show us. Then, what seemed like tedious, monotonous, and sometimes fruitless work may become the path to extraordinary discoveries and the fulfillment of our true mission. Let's open our hearts to the risen Jesus. May God bless us all.